Here we are, riffing while blood. I was looking at the video from
Yeah.
last week. I noticed, yeah, that was special. A little singing and dancing and stuff. How you doing,
I,
bro?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's Thursday. It's been a quiet week. It's almost over. I'm ready for it to be over. So it's all good. It's all good. And you?
Doing well, man. Just here we are in August now. That means the last part of summer is crazy hot down here. We baking like bacon on a frying pan. It's
My goodness. I wish we were like I think we're only gonna be like 78 today, man. And look, I think I'm seeing the trees already starting to turn.
really
I got
wow.
dressed. Yes, early. I'm out walking in the morning. I'm like, it's chilly. I gotta put on my long sleeves. And I'm always cold too, so that don't help. But I'm like, it's chilly out here. I'm like, ah, man, summer over already. I'm like, these are things we endure in Chicago. You know what I mean? It might hit Labor Day weekend, and it'll be like winter in Chicago. You know what I mean? So
Crazy. Well, cool, bro. Well, we got a good number of topics here. And the first one, our side eye, I'm going to just read from my notes. This has to do with a brother who was endorsed by Donald Trump, our president, and he's black. But he also has a Muslim name. His name is Amir Hassan. And we wanted to have a side eye because the fools didn't vote for him because of his name, and he lost to the guy who dropped out. I mean, if
and
that's
that's the
not
worst part.
crazy.
We
Yeah.
lost to a dude who dropped out of the race like 3 months ago.
Crazy. So that's our side eye. And then we got Howard University. They're back in the news. And this has to do with the disenrollment and then re-enrollment of several hundred students as we start the beginning of the school year. And so just the developments that has to do with that situation. Next one, we're actually going to show a couple of videos here. One of them, it has to do with Oprah. She makes some comments about how mean people seem to be treating one another. And so we're going to spend a little time on that. And lastly, we're going to talk about the rise of the stay-at-home boyfriend. The stay-at-home boyfriend. I'm going to show the video, but I'll be honest, I got some feelings about it because
You feel
like,
a certain kind
what?
of way?
I was like, what? The stay-at-home boyfriend. So I don't have the cards with us today, so we're going to skip the djembe cards, but I wanted to go straight into Howard University. I mean, now, Howard University is a esteemed institution. I'm biased because, as you can see, I'm at the Prairie View A&M
I know
University.
you was rocking your Prairie View today. I was like, okay. I'm like KP's all into the historically black colleges thing. So apropos.
So, but I'll be honest, I'll be honest, I thought with my kids and other kids at this time, the idea that you can get kicked out of school. And I think the circumstances that I understand and read was that their financial aid situation hadn't been solved. And so because of that, and because the money hadn't come in, basically they were kicked out of their courses that they were enrolled in. And it was a huge big thing because several of those students came from New York and other parts of the East Coast. And actually, some schools even responded by enrolling them or at least offering them enrollment in their schools locally. I don't know. Was that what you heard or understood?
Yeah, it's at first. I'll be honest. My first reaction was, "What the f is Howard doing?" I'm like, "This is ridiculous." And the more I've sort of read about it and gotten into it, I kind of flipped. And it's a political hotball right now because Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, as well as Wes Moore in Maryland, both have offered. I can't remember if it was free tuition or not, but accommodation for these students who it's enrolled. And I'll be honest, all of that smacked of like politicization of a real issue of the students. Like you're trying to score points. I'm not really sure with whom, especially in the case of West Moore. I'm like, because your constituency is large, is black and brown largely. So what you doing, bro? But I was like, you're trying to, it was like, oh, Howard's inept and they're not doing anything was one of the takes that I took. But in reading a lot more, I think the issue for me comes down to this. These students did not do what they were supposed to do. I mean, there are issues around financial aid, which I think is real. Howard had reached out to these students multiple times in multiple ways, and the students never responded. They didn't say, my financial aid ain't come through. Oh, I'm still planning on coming. Can you help me to work through an issue? They just didn't respond. And so at some point, they were like, you're not responding. And again, the headline is a little bit deceiving. Howard kicks out students because they couldn't pay. That's the headline. And that's true. However, what I've read is the story is a whole lot more complex than that.
It is usually.
And as it usually is, I'm like, the university had reached out to students, had offered opportunities to help them, and the kids didn't. And, and and the reason I've swung to Howard's side on this, and I should say, I am a alum of the esteemed Howard University. I got my master's degree there. I don't have any but I don't have any great affinity to Howard. So I ain't really taking their side like I was there in undergrad and like, Howard's amazing. I'm like, feels I. Feels I. And at some point, where do we hold ourselves and, in this case, young people accountable? You have a responsibility as a student, right? And it goes in all kinds of psychological stuff that you and I talked on different episodes as well. We're infantilizing kids. Parents are always doing too much. I'm like, you as even 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid, there's a part of you that needs to grow up. It is your responsibility. Mama shouldn't be writing your college essay for you. You should write it yourself. They helped you to get your financial aid. But again, it's your responsibility to communicate to the school what your situation is if you need additional help or additional time. Because typically my experience is universities will work with you. So
Especially at Howard.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, there was when I was at Howard. I mean, trust that student loan hadn't come in. They was like, okay, well, as soon as you get it, you applied. I'm like, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. I'm like, I'm just waiting for the check to come in. They're like, okay, we good.
Maybe
You
that's
just
why I
got to
was a
put
little confused by this thing because now it's been a little while, but at Prairie View and Rutgers and other schools I've attended, HBCUs and otherwise, they typically, especially when it comes to financial aid, because the money always usually takes it's a bit of a
right,
delay, right?
right,
Usually some schools it's months, others it's weeks, but
right.
eventually the money comes in and then they
Money
cover
comes.
your tuition and then whatever's left over and they kind of work something out because they know the money's coming in. I had suspicion that this had more to do with the federal government and how they're dealing with financial aid, but I'm learning from you this has really more to do with the students, which
At
actually
least the way
200 students
I read.
is a small percentage of the incoming class, correct?
Sorry, say that again.
200 students or so is like a small percentage of the
Yeah,
incoming
I mean,
class.
so they had 500 students who they disenrolled. They've re-enrolled 200, so it's a net loss of like 300 students. Howard typically, I think, from an undergrad standpoint, is bringing in maybe like 3, 4, 5,000 kids every year. I may be wrong about those numbers, but I mean, it's a relatively large
Mhm.
number of students come in. So this is a fraction, but let's say it's 5,000. 500 students is 10% of your student body, so it's not insignificant from that standpoint.
Mhm.
But, and if it was just like on the first flash, they're like, screw you, we got 500 in waiting, I mean, it's not like Harvard would be like, you didn't do your stuff. We gonna boot you and we got 8 people waiting to take your space or 25. But I think it felt a little bit like a statement on Howard's part to the students about responsibility. And maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but to me, I'm like, this is an integrity and responsibility question for the students, and the minimum would be communicate.
Right. Right.
Use your words, communicate.
Well, and I just looked it up. They say they have about 2,200 students enrolling, first year students enrolling
Okay.
all together. So if
So I was high.
about 200 or 300 didn't get in, I don't want to minimize this, but if what you're saying is true, I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges, these students adjusting to what life in college is like and the
Hmm.
responsibility. And to be honest, it's not just a student, especially if you have families where maybe college hasn't been a highest
Right.
priority or it's the first generational. And so
Hmm.
there's those aspects, but you still have to do something in response to these requests and follow, because this is going to follow you through your 4 to 10 year program, your
Yeah.
whatever one you're on. So, I mean, I think your point is a really good one. I just wonder what made them decide to reverse their decision with half of those students. Had you learned anything?
Oh, you know, it, that shit's called bad press.
Yeah, it was bad
They was
press.
getting they was getting drugged through social media and every other form. I mean, look, Howard disenrolling 500 students, getting to the governor of New York. and making a big deal out of it.
But does it continue the problem? Because if we, yeah, we are kind of coddling our young people in some way or another, and then the governor of New York and the governor from Maryland come in and say, "Hey, we'll hook you up." I mean, some of that sounds kind of cool. I'm like, "Hey, hey, no reason for you not to miss school this year, right?" That
Right,
sounds great.
right.
But I guess what I'm curious now is how this become a news story in the first place. If this is probably something that happens every year across all campuses across this country.
All campus, and that part I don't know. I mean, but I know it happens. I mean, I had friends when I was an undergrad who didn't pay their money and got booted out.
Well, help me
You
out.
know,
Help me out. If they were disenrolled, that
I mean,
means
it
they
wasn't
were
500.
enrolled. Did they accept? I guess they accepted, and
They had
so that's
already
why they were
accepted.
enrolled.
They had already accepted. They had financial deadlines that they were supposed to meet that they did not meet. And again, the parts that I will over index on was they failed to communicate. So it wasn't even like they're like, hey, I didn't get my financial aid. It was like they're reaching out and they're like, they just not responded.
Hmm.
You know, I'm like, you got to say something, you know.
How many of those students? And again, help me out because I feel like some time has gone by because most of my kids have
I'm
done
older
this.
than you are. So if time has gone by for you, I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm sitting at Boozeland range, right?
well, and this is the part. I'm like, how many of those students maybe were enrolled in another school and thought maybe I'm gonna instead of Howard, I'm gonna go to
Waiting.
Prairie View. I'm gonna go to
Right.
Houston Tillotson or whatever
Right. Right.
institution.
My safety school or
Yeah,
whatever.
and so it just kind of they fell them off the rolls because they're
Yeah.
probably going to school somewhere else. It was some
I don't know.
misunderstanding. You think?
Clearly a misunderstanding, a miscommunication. But it was interesting. I remember reading about a young lady who, you know, horrible sort of story, but could be life affirming, right? She's living in a shelter in New York State, and she was one of the kids who got disenrolled and was re-enrolled and was very grateful. And I thought her takeaway was, one, I've never been to college. I don't have anybody to assist me. It
Mhm.
was a little bit of mea culpa. I didn't know. And then she said, well, I'm really relieved to be back in and it's a blessing. It's a learning lesson for me. And I do hope for most of the students, it's a bit of a learning lesson.
Yeah,
It's like you can't, and it's not all their responsibility. Let's be clear about that. I mean, some of this falls on their parents and, their college, their high schools who should have been supporting them through some of this. But at the end of the day, it's your responsibility. It's a bill that you are incurring and and it's a very grown up situation that you have to deal with, right? I mean, and look, I'm sure for that young lady, maybe this is the first time she's ever in her life had to deal with something around significant finances and all that kind of stuff. So I'll give her a pass on that. But you were grown enough to make a decision about going to college. You're grown enough to make a decision about which college you're going to go to. Then you should be grown enough to understand. And by the way, I'm sure you were grown enough to, fill out that paper to get that Pell Grant and everything else. These are all grown up decisions that you're making along the way. And I know I sound like some old hard ass, but I'm like, at some point, this is also a part of that process of growing up, I mean, and college teaches you a whole lot that ain't in books, in my experience. So, and the university itself too, because it's like, okay,
yeah,
that seems really hard ass. And maybe there's a point where you're like, yeah, y'all 500. And maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was them 500 just never responded. And they're like, okay,
yeah.
well, we don't want to, but we going to have to,
Right, and we have all these other
and they're like,
students
we're
who might
holding
want to go to
dorms,
school
we're
here.
holding, right. They're holding dorms and all kinds of other things for these students who may or may not be showing up. That's disenfranchising the other 2,200 or, 1,800 kids who did do all the stuff that they were supposed to do, and may not be able to get a dorm room because that, whatever. So, I mean, I don't know that, but I'm just thinking, and it does go back to, my favorite thing is we's all a community. What you do impacts other people, and that's not the story that we're talking about, but I also think the choices and decisions that you make have impacts on other people, and same for me. And so, you know, of being a little bit cognizant, and maybe that's a lot to ask of a 17 or an 18-year-old, but being cognizant of like the choices that you're making do impact other people in addition to yourself might be something worthwhile to explore.
Well, the thing, what you made me remember or recall is that this is something simple, but I think it illustrates the challenge. And this is, again, a bit dated, but when a student would come to me and say, hey, Dr. Prince, I need a letter of recommendation. Hey, could you write me a letter of recommendation? I would say it would be a pleasure to write
Hmm.
a very robust
Hmm.
recommendation for you. It'd be for jobs or grad school
Right.
or whatever, right?
Hmm.
The thing I would tell them before they left my office or finished the conversation or email, it would be say, look, I'm going to be real honest with you. I'm a busy person, got a lot going on. I will write this letter of recommendation, but it may fall off my radar. It is incumbent upon you to bug me, be a pain in my ass. I'm giving you
You're in my
permission
ass.
to
Right.
reach out, call, do what you
Hmm.
need to do. Make sure this recommendation letter
Right.
is, as I'm going to do it. I'm agreeing to do it, but y'all need to make it a responsibility of, because
Yes.
in the end, this ain't my, this ain't my life. Your life
No.
is not my life.
You're like, I got my multiple degrees and stop. I'm good.
Go get yours because I got mine.
I
So,
got my
and I'm giving you permission. You're right. And the reason I'm
giving you
saying it that way,
permission.
because it's like,
Yeah. Right.
they want to be pushy or whatever.
Hmm.
And sometimes you need to be given permission to do certain kinds of
You do.
things. And so I guess that's the kind of advice I've given my own kids, other people, is like, this is impacting you first. Make this the highest priority by encouraging others to make it a priority.
Right.
And that's sometimes the best you can do in these situations. And if they still fall through, it falls through. There's nothing you can do about it.
Right. Right.
But
Right. But you did your part.
yes. And so that's advice I've given to many of people in this. And so I think with these students, if this, everything you're saying is accurate, sounds like it is, that's the learning curve, and unfortunately we do. And I'm trying to find the balance, right? Because
Yeah.
I
Fair.
don't want to be quite like how I was treated as a latchkey kid out there in the wilderness, just trying to survive. You make your own peanut butter and big jelly sandwiches, figure it out, Nurgle.
Right. Right.
But at the same time, I don't want to coddle them. And I know what
Yeah.
feels like coddling to me is different than I think this
Yeah.
coming generation.
Yeah.
But there has to be a balance
There's
in
balance.
my mind.
Yep.
And can we find that balance? And again, I'm still suspicious. Who made this the story? If this is something that happens day in and day out every freaking semester.
Yeah. I didn't. I still don't understand that piece either. Like, how did this rise? This sort of internal university situation. How did this rise? And I suspect it was probably some family or some student who took
Connected.
umbrage, right? That they
Mhm.
were kicked out and they floated this story, and it's Howard kicked me out,
Well, the
without telling the
assumption is what? It's
world
Howard's raggedy. And they're not
Howard's
doing their
rag.
jabbity.
Well, and I think that's a part of the historically black college story that is loved to be told. And lots of the comments that I saw kind of pertaining to this was Howard is raggedy as hell, and this is just another example of how raggedy they are as a university,
It's the real
which
story,
which
maybe.
again, I think that's a part of the real story, right? Because that communicates something that I think it readily supports a position of, you know, black incompetence and all of that. That's like, see, they can't even enroll students, and they mean and hurtful to the poor little babies. You don't give a damn about the baby
The
in general,
babies,
you
the
know.
babies. Well, let's talk about someone else's baby who's been mistreated. Amir Hassan. Now,
Okay.
now let's be clear. This person, I'm gonna start off nice. This person, Amir Hassan, is
You
running
shouldn't just go
for
for it.
a GOP position, was endorsed by Donald Trump, and was assumed that he would win this race because he was all about the way he spoke, and and the thing is that the brother, when you listen to him without having to agree or disagree with him, he's well spoken. He seems educated, intelligent, all the things you might want to have in a candidate. But his name again is Amir Hassan. Apparently, for months and weeks prior to the primary they had, the racist,
Crazy.
Islamophobic, straight up hateful people were canceling him as a candidate because they
Mm.
thought he was going to bring Sharia law. MAGA endorsed candidate was going to bring Sharia law, and they just mistreated this man absolutely for no reason when he was on their side. You talking about friendly fire. And then the Copa, I don't know what the right phrase is, but the grande resistance
Hmm.
the man loses to the person he was competing against, who had dropped out the race. What, 3 months earlier?
3 months before.
Bruh, the racism,
The
the
racist.
Islamophobia
Right. I
is
mean, it's all of
real.
them isms. And I'm like, and again, it tells you something because MAGA, usually hook, line, and sinker, goes with whoever Trump promotes as a candidate. They could be the worst
Mindlessly.
thing ever, pedophiles, all kinds of stuff. But like, oh, Trump endorsed them, so they must be, they're gonna go run for it. Except in this case, and it does make one pause.
I mean, racism is a real thing, y'all. I mean,
Right? I'm like, you're like,
well spoken, educated. I mean, he
well,
looked
that's
good. I'm he
them's
good
two
looking
strikes.
brother.
Right. Them's two strikes. You well spoken and you sound like you educated. That's a problem, clearly. I mean, like in some ways he sounded a little bit like he was just a regular old Republican
Yeah, he was. He was playing.
and
He
not
had
no, but that
blackface.
might be problematic. He ain't quite MAGA enough. But
Apparently
it makes
not.
me think it's like you're black with a Muslim sounding name and you lost to a dude who ain't even running.
And yeah, I don't know what the consequences are. I don't know if the guy who won is going to be like, "Yo, I wasn't running. Give it to Amir." I don't think that's how it works. I think homeboy. And if I was homeboy, I'd probably be like, "Shit, sucks to be you, bro.
Right.
I'm
Right.
going. I'm
Exactly.
running."
You're like, your political career is over. You lost to a dude who wasn't even running. I
And,
didn't campaign for 3 months. I mean,
but
like
he reminds me of like, what's that brother down in Florida, Donald something,
Byron Donalds.
Bob Donalds. He reminded me of him a little bit because there's a part of me that wants to believe there's a certain innocence. Let's call it innocence, where they believe.
You are feeling really nice today. What's going on? Side sidebar.
I'm
What's
trying
going
to.
on, man?
Well, we're gonna talk about people being mean here in a minute, so maybe that's why.
Right.
But
You predisposed to like, I'm really nice today. I need the heat. I need the
he
KP
seems.
coming with heat, man.
Well, and Donald, I want to believe he has a good heart. He has good intention. He's just wrong on a lot of things, right? Just ass wrong. And so I want to believe that this brother, I don't know him, Amir Hassan. I assume he
Mm-hmm.
loves his family and his friends are great and all that good stuff, right?
Sounds
All
like it.
those, but you got to be mortified. You have to have some cognitive dissonance to be in this situation. And you've seen it with the brother who's out of South Carolina. Like, what's the brother from South
Tim
Carolina?
Scott.
Yeah.
Tim.
That fool, every once in a while, he has this like,
Correct
this,
term. That fool.
he has this like moments of epiphany, like racism is real. Just the day before, he's like racism don't count, and then he has an experience with racism, and all of a sudden he's like JJ from Good Times. What you
Right.
just like dynamite? Racism is real.
Dynamite. Exactly. Exactly.
And so, what do you think Amir did when he woke up in the morning after all that? He spent time roaming the state, talking to all these people, kissing babies, and what do you imagine how he woke up? What do you think what was his state of mind, my brother?
you know what flashed through my mind? He woke up and he immediately went to the scotch to the scotch in the cabinet and just like poured a triple. He's like, right, exactly. He's like, F it. I'm like, he's like, I can't believe I lost, I mean, the only thing worse would have been like, I lost to a dead man,
I
you
mean, that
know?
would have been better. I might
Right.
well say he was dead and we were sympathetic to his dead ass,
Right.
his
Exactly.
memory,
I'm like,
or
I'm
lost
like,
to the
how can you
wife
go?
or the girlfriend or sister of
Right.
someone dead. That
Exactly.
didn't make more sense.
Exactly. Right.
He
Some
lost.
sense, but you lost to a dude who dropped out. Now, who knows? Maybe he was a terrible campaigner, But I'm like, you were
Nah.
giving up all the trophy. I'm like, you know, it don't make no sense. All I come down to racism and Islamophobia. I mean, somebody else might come up with a different outcome, but I'm like, them's the two things that I see quite obviously. And I will say, juxtaposed to Dr. El Sayed in Michigan, who Muslim Persian man,
Mhm.
who beats the Democrat
Oh, yeah,
or
Michigan. Yeah, yeah,
moderate
yeah.
candidate.
Abdul El Asid. Yes, yes.
Yeah, who wins his race as a brown man with you know he's not a democratic socialist, which everybody keeps trying to say. He has said clearly, I am not a democratic socialist,
I'm a capitalist.
but pretty far left leaning, who wins his race. And again, but then they throw shade. He's like, well, they thought he would win by more. He only won by. I'm like, bro, he won,
The fact that he won,
right?
it speaks
Right.
volumes.
Let's just leave it at he won. So that's an interesting, to me, juxtaposition of those two things. I mean, and maybe it gears me toward Brother Hassan's situation is more about race than Islam. Because if I look at these two cats, what's the difference? Now Michigan, I don't know where was Hassan running? Do you know?
I forget off the top of my head. I'm sorry. You know what? I'll look it up. But finish your thought.
Google. But so we could argue, Michigan is pretty purple, if not historically blue leaning, so that might have been a difference. But you know, running a campaign, so I just think, well, maybe this racism piece, in MAGA world is more significant than we would want to admit. And frankly, given the rise of white supremacy culture under Donald Trump and of, pure flat out, white supremacists in this country under Donald Trump's leadership, that racism would be playing a role in his loss would not be remotely surprising and definitely not shocking.
Well, here's the irony, my brother.
Hmm.
My brother Amir Hassan was running for Congress in Michigan. The same MF and
Right? Okay.
so it must be whoever the guy he lost to will be running against Abdul El Said for
Okay.
the seat
See,
in
you
Michigan.
still being super nice today because I'm like,
I'm
the
trying to bring
racism
some
is
kindness.
abundant.
Trying to bring some kindness to the world. Well,
You
it's I feel bad for him because it's racism that is always ugly when you see it, even in this situation. But it speaks to the reality and the truth of the situation. You got some racist, Islamophobic, hateful people out there who don't even look at the
right,
ballot, don't listen to what Trump is saying, and
right.
vote accordingly because they just saw a face and a name and said, "Hell no, we ain't doing it.
Hmm.
We're
Yeah.
gonna bring Sharia law
You,
here."
you, you, you kinder than me because I don't feel bad for him because he got bad politics as far as I'm concerned. So
I mean, he was
you,
gonna do some harm to to his
right,
state. So
exactly. So,
straight
like,
up.
you go on about your business.
Well, let's switch up subjects because I want to talk about what's the next one. I want to talk
You gonna do
about.
Oprah?
See,
Oprah's
it's
fighting.
you want to do Oprah next?
That's up to you.
Let's do. Yeah, I want to do the one with about old girl who's upset about this
You're like, oh,
about
men's
sorry
men, men men being at home,
men
being
being home. She
being
did
being
not
took
like that.
care of. You
I
like
was like, ooh,
she
let's
ain't
see here.
happy.
Got it here.
Let's
No, no,
check it
not
out.
that one. Not that one. I stopped sharing. Sorry about that. Let me get back to you. 1 second.
So Hassan's still trying to get elected. That's
Sorry,
what he
look.
do. You're
Help
like,
me.
maybe it's not too late. It's too late, bro.
I need a chance.
Right.
Here we go. Oh no, it's not here. There you go. Boom. Here you go. All right, y'all ready? Let's do it. Slow. Sorry. That's plenty to go off of.
That's a lot.
They had some really strong feelings about this. And I don't know if it's just Gen Z. There's probably others out there too, but really strong feelings about the idea of women being the breadwinners and these men
Mm.
staying home. Now, I don't know if they're trad husbands or trad boyfriends or whatever their right
I
terminology
was thinking,
is.
I'm like, is that a new category, like trad husband, or is that
I don't
just
know.
like a bad hanger-on movie, right?
And then I started trying to evaluate. I said, I think those women are probably in their 30s or 40s. So I'm thinking, this is, were they millennials? What,
Probably.
why do you think they had such a hard time with this idea of, because these men must be lazy? I mean, what's the premise
That
here?
seems to be the underlying trope, that these young men are lazy, even though she gave some statistics about what's happening in the job market and where jobs are moving in terms of healthcare, which have been traditionally female-led professions, at least on the nursing level. I mean, there is an underlying question, which is the culture changing? I mean, on the positive side, where we go, well, maybe our heterosexist patriarchal way of being is changing, and we're buying more into truly buying into equality. I don't know that I actually believe that that's true, but we can make the argument. And if that's where they're going, then at some level you have to be okay with a woman who makes more money. A woman has to be okay with making more money than the man that she is with, and that doesn't diminish him necessarily. So, what are we really saying? But the vehement says something about, as much as women are, or at least these two women are talking about equality, or I assume they're talking about equality. They ain't buying into, there's a certain kind of equality, which is I want to have a great job, make the money that I make, but my man got to bring something to the table too.
And I get
Which
that
I'm
to a
down.
point. I get that to a point. But remember that? Did you watch Insecure with the sister
Issa Rae.
Issa Rae? Yeah. And the whole
Mhm.
premise of that show started off because she was disappointed in her man because he had lost his job and was unemployed, sitting around the
Mhm.
house, wasn't being as productive. Now, eventually he did. And if you watch the series, they end up both being very,
Mhm.
very successful at their jobs. But the challenge is that she was disappointed and they actually broke up because he wasn't
Mhm.
really doing anything and kind of
Mhm.
lost himself a little bit.
Yep.
And I remember you had to be Team Issa or Team whatever his name was on the show,
Right.
Lazarus or something like that.
Right.
I'll look that was his name. But I was hit on his side because I was
Mhm.
like, bruh, we have rough times in life sometimes, and you need a partner who's gonna, not just financially who's gonna support you, but emotionally otherwise. I don't know how long you're supposed to let that last. Like, I don't know if it's like
Mhm.
6 months, a year, 2 years.
Right.
And is it different when you're married versus when you're just dating? Then you can make some more strong arguments. But I think it goes against this idea that somehow men, particularly if they're not being productive, there's something wrong with them on a fundamental
Yes.
level. Now,
Yes.
me personally, I feel like I was talking to someone on the phone yesterday. I said, hey, I grew up with this notion from my uncles who said, look, if you're not earning, you better be learning. If you're not learning, you better be earning. It goes back to the idea of being productive, right? You can't just be sitting around finding yourself, getting familiar with the birds and the bees and the seas and the trees. I mean, you better be doing something.
Gotta be doing something.
So I get the sense of doing something. I
Yep.
have a struggle with
Makes no
somehow
sense.
they're immoral or less of a man because they're being a trad husband or whatever the term might be.
Whatever it could be. You've created a whole new term, trad husband. Right.
Well, the thing is and are they have the same criticism of women who decide to stay at home if they don't have any kids? Are this lazy bums sitting around
Right.
just collecting
Yes.
dust? I mean, maybe they are. I
Yes.
don't know.
Yes, they are. Let me just own that. Yes, they are. They're lazy bums too. Like, find something to do with yourself.
Well, you know what? I guess I haven't had much of a trouble with people like that. As long and this is I'm going to challenge my own assumptions. As long as they were productive in some other form, like okay, if they had kids, they were taking the kids
Right.
around.
Sure.
Even if they didn't have kids, but they are volunteering for
Mhm.
nonprofits, or maybe they have their own nonprofit, or maybe they're trying to get their business going. I don't know,
Mhm.
but
Yeah. That's different.
it's hard for me to imagine someone be like at the house staying pretty or watching video games. And maybe that's what they're imagining is guys sitting at the house
Right.
just
Well, he ain't making pretty. All he doing exactly. He gaming all day, watching ESPN.
because he
And
has a
betting on
business idea.
costing her money.
Well, what was that movie? Eat, Pray, Love, or whatever with Julia
Okay.
Roberts.
Yeah.
Remember,
Yeah. Yeah.
she had the husband in the movie, and he had all these ideas, but none of his ideas actually created anything. He wasn't
Right.
a trad
Right. None
husband.
of it ever came to
But
fruition.
yeah, but people identified with her because they're like,
Mhm.
look at this husband who ain't doing shit.
He ain't doing shit. Yeah.
And he was a problem because and he loved the hell out of it. And that's why I had a hard
Mhm.
time watching that movie because I was like, wait a minute, you over here eat, praying, and loving all over the damn globe, and this man didn't do nothing to you. Now, I didn't read the book. I just saw the movie. That's why I get told
Right.
by some of my friends that, well, you didn't
Okay.
read the book. You don't understand how
Right.
hard it was for her. I'm like, you know what? You're probably right. But in the movie, he didn't do nothing
Right.
wrong.
He didn't do nothing wrong. He seemed okay. It's interesting. I was read this study a couple of years ago, and it was looking at like hyper successful women, senior VP, C-suite leaders who are women. And one of the things that the article concluded was hyper successful women tend to look like hyper successful men in terms of their house configuration.
Mm-hmm.
That their husbands or partners tended to step back in their careers, if not give up their careers for their very successful wives. And I was surprised, but when I stepped back, it made a lot of sense. That's not what we're talking about exactly in this
Not but
situation,
someone, yeah.
but some of it was like, hey, somebody's got to be there for the kids. Somebody's got to, take care of the household. And I actually know a guy who his wife is incredibly successful, made multiple millions of dollars in her career. And he was an accountant, like, finance officer, all that kind of stuff. And he actually stopped working to basically Mr. Mom his kids. But that was something that they chose to do.
Right. It was a conscious thing.
It was a conscious decision as a part of their family lifestyle to do that. This situation that we're talking about, it doesn't sound like that's the situation. You know what I mean? I'm willing to carry my partner for a minute while you figuring your ish out, but not forever.
But see, now you make me think about this other story that's been out there about, maybe it's related to this, but this notion that I don't know, I'm crumbling my thoughts, but there's something about, being able to, be this trad husband. Is there really anything wrong with it fundamentally? Because I feel like if millennials in general, I think there was a number, there was a 41% of men who voted for Kamala Harris wanted a traditional wife, someone who stayed at home, took care of the kids. So these are progressives. So we assume these are MAGA folks. No, these are progressives. That kind of surprises.
Mm-hmm.
And so 41% of them wanted a traditional because it just felt right to them in some way or another. I don't know what the circumstances are. And so, I don't know if that can apply for women as well, but there's some, I don't know. I feel like there's some, I was talking to my daughter about this, and my daughter's been raised by these, liberal ass parents and independent minded woman and a father, blah, blah, blah. And when I look at her relationship with her boyfriend, it's not traditional, but there's a part of her is like, I just want him to take my car and get it washed. I want him to take out the garbage without me having to ask. These very kind of I won't call them traditional, but this idea of being taken care of and looked after, and men wanting the same kind of being looked after and cared for by their girlfriends and husband wives. And I wonder if there's something to that people are falling into, not because they're trying to resist it. Like, I'm you can't make me do it, but like choosing it is a lifestyle. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's interesting that people seem to be going in that direction.
Yeah. And I think if it's a choice, like we as a couple have decided this is what we're going to live your life.
Yeah.
Whatever. The way I was hearing this story was it didn't seem to be a choice that they were making as a couple. I mean, some of it was circumstantial, harder for men are having a harder time finding jobs in their traditional area. Well, and so it's like almost by default, it's like where's the conversation around that, and if you're staying at home, are you living up to your side of our partnership bargain, whatever that is, like what, again, whatever it is. So and I do wonder, and they stress sort of this is Gen Z or whatever, maybe we just old and dated.
Maybe, but I can tell you as a parent, I see young people and I'm thinking, what you doing with yourself?
What you doing with yourself?
Because there's a lot of people so there's a greater phenomenon of younger generations staying with their parents for a long period of time to save money, go to school, whatever the reasons are. But one of the things that are part of that conversation is that the assumption is they're getting things done. This is to help them out.
Yes.
There's a whole other crew, I would like to believe there's a minority, well, they're not doing anything. They're playing video games. Their parents are paying for all their bills. They're not working. They're not going to school.
Right.
And so I don't know if the worry is that it's something similar to that, where you got these women being their mamas.
Yes.
Taking care of them, and they're not doing anything. They're not contributing in any way. And maybe that's a concern. I don't know. I feel like I'm reaching here, but
point out that is, but if that's what's playing out, that is a concern. I mean, and it kind of goes back to that first thing that we were talking about Howard. You know, if this relationship is you as a woman making more money and infantilizing your man, that's problematic.
Yeah.
You know, in all kinds of ways, and a part of why it's problematic is long term. A lot of these women, when they have kids, their husbands are not raising those kids. They are going to work, doing their 9 to 5, and then
Then
coming home
coming
and raising
home and
babies too.
working more.
You know, right? So you're working at home and in an office. So that piece of it would be concerning to me.
But why would
And
you
I'll be
choose someone like
judgmental.
that? Is it a control thing? Because I'd be like, nigga.
Uh, right, right. You know,
I can't
I
imagine picking someone like that
right.
who's
Well,
not
but you and I
handling.
are both sort of seeing it as the worst of men, like his trifling ass. And maybe it's not his trifling ass, so like to try to be fair. Maybe he ain't just trifling. Maybe he trying. I mean, it feels trifling, but maybe he trying.
Yeah,
Things
he's
ain't working
trying.
out.
I want to believe he's
You know,
trying. I want to
I
believe he's
see
trying.
you super hopeful today.
Damn,
You
I don't know
you
why.
super hopeful.
It-
I'm like, can you go play the lottery tonight and win all that hopeful money?
well, let me tell you my personal story. So when I just got married, this was 95, 96, somewhere in
Okay.
there.
Hmm.
And I just got married over the summer, and
Hmm.
we moved with our happy-go-lucky asses to Worcester, Massachusetts. Now she had a job, and the assumption was I would quit my job in the Bronx and move
Hmm.
up to Massachusetts together,
Hmm.
and I would find a job. It's just
Sure.
this is what you do, right?
Right.
We talking about months, bro. Months went
Uh,
by before I could
uh,
find a job.
uh,
Now back to the adage: if you're not earning, you should be learning. So my black
hmm.
ass was in the library. I was in the library at the College of Holy Cross so much they thought I was a professor there.
He's doing the mood in. You're like,
I was there all the
you're
time
like, where's your
researching.
professor? Where's your ID, Doctor
Yeah,
Prince? You
and
know.
I was applying to different programs. There was
Hmm.
Occidental College there. I was applying to other schools across the country. I was busy. I would literally get up, go
Right.
to the
That's your
gym.
job.
That was my job.
Yeah.
But someone from the outside might look and say, "What's this Negro doing every day?
Right.
Is
What
he
he doing?
handling
Why
business?"
that woman taking care of this grown ass man?
Right, right. Because he's always available. I'm like, no, this is me. I got things to do. I have this research I'm doing. And,
Right.
I did some good research during this time,
I bet you
FYI.
did like coffee. Got my
Finally
coffee.
a job came through and it was
Right.
great. And it had to do actually with my ex's connections to help me get the position.
Hmm.
It was all good. But
Yeah.
I wonder if this is what some of these men are going through. The
So,
perception.
question for you in that, because it's really interesting. What did it feel like for you to be in that situation? Like, was it emotionally hard for you?
No, I just thought she was doing her job and I was doing my job. My contribution was to be an active, participatory person who had things to talk about and things that were interesting. I supported her in the transition. I used all my muscle to move that shit up into that apartment on the
Yeah.
17th floor. And when she went to work, I made meals. We did things together. I mean, I was an active participant in our relationship. We didn't have kids yet. I kept myself busy. I didn't wait for her to tell me what to do and
Hmm.
offer this or that. I wouldn't handle business. I hope was a partner in life.
But you didn't
And
feel like you were a kept man or any of that kind of
hell
stuff.
no, because I was keeping myself.
Mm.
Because she get paid, but then I would think I'll pay the bills, whatever
Mm.
bills we may have had, handling, didn't have a whole lot of bills, but we handled business. And I just expected, and the thing is, the circumstances were reversed. So
Hmm.
fast forward, now we have kids. We moved broke as hell to Austin, Texas.
Mm.
I have a job, not the best paying job, a
Hmm.
job.
Right.
She's at home with the kids. She's doing this. We were role reversal.
Right.
She's trying to be in school, trying to look after the kids. I mean, let's
Hmm.
be clear, there's a lot more work involved with that than
Right.
what I had to deal with.
And then you
But it
had,
was a
yeah, yeah,
reversal, right?
yeah.
And I didn't
Hmm.
look down on her and be like, what you doing all day? And I like, you grown. And she was there, like, just like me. She was over at the campus at UT doing research. She joined Mocha Moms,
Hmm.
professional women who, were had kids and were stay at home moms. But she was busier with them kids and other things she was involved with than when she was working.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I just like that's kind of what I expected, and I didn't. I look down on her. I just feel like, oh, this is what we're doing, and we're doing the best we can, and let's pray and hope that we can get beyond this.
Right.
And and eventually it did, but I couldn't imagine. Yeah. It's hard for me to think if she had looked down on me somehow or another during that time, or if I looked down on her, that wouldn't feel like a partnership to me.
No. And maybe that's underlying what we're sort of alluding to, and maybe what the commentators were alluding to, was this sense of, without knowing a specific situation, that it doesn't sound like a partnership. What did the sister say? Men are looking for a sugar mama. I mean, that, sugar mama, sugar daddy, by definition, that is not equal. That's not an equal partnership. That comes off as somebody is using somebody else. And I would differentiate between that and what you described in your family situation on both ends of that, right? Like, it was truly a partnership. We are making decisions for our family, for our coupleship, that will eventually move us forward. And, a consequence is this. When I was 11, my family moved to Illinois because my dad got a job in Illinois. My mom was a school teacher, and, that they decided that was best for our family to move. And so we moved, but that also meant a massive upheaval for my mom. I mean, she had to leave her job, and, as a school teacher, you can get a job, she was able to substitute teach very quickly, but there's disruption for sure, So yeah, maybe the end of it is, if these arrangements work for their coupleship, a little bit of who am I to say that it doesn't make sense? But I think it's the thing that we don't know, which is, what's the underlying conversation behind why this is playing out the way it plays out. And I suspect if it's equal, the relationship won't last.
It won't. And maybe that's the good and bad of this. If they really are unequal in the ways that people are fearing, well, they'll be young and it will not last, and they'll move on.
Yeah.
Or the truth is, they have a pretty balanced relationship, and this is just a season that they're going.
It's a season.
And I think, and maybe some of us are just jealous, I mean, I have a cousin who says, when we be playing with her and teasing about some shit, her response every time is like, y'all just jealous. That's all. Y'all just jealous. Yeah. Leave me alone. Got my business.
Y'all wish y'all had it like this. Y'all wish.
I mean, I'll be honest. If the sister is like, hey, I know your situation's kind of rough right now, the job situation, but I'm gonna hold it down, and you do your thing, and we'll work things out. I'll be like, thank you.
You're like, quizzically,
I'm like,
thank you.
You love me because I'm a hard worker. I'm a busting my ass over here.
Right.
You see me.
Right.
But if you a kind of woman who's gonna be like, you lazy, man, hold up, who you calling lazy?
Right, lazy, trifling ass. When you gonna get a job? Right.
So I see you gonna make me be mean today. So
you had like 50 minutes of nice. You're like, nah, see, like last.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Well, I do want us to get to talking about Oprah, but I feel like we're out of time for today. So I want to start with Oprah next week, because I think she has a pretty good insight. Oprah's been our mama, our great auntie, for about 30 years right now. She our rent-a-negro / adoptive Black mama for 40 years, and I think she has a lot to say, because there's some extra meanness that seem to be thrown around. I like to call it spear chunking. Folks just chunking spears at each other just for no reason. Why are you throwing spears at me like that?
Right, exactly. There's a lot of hate going on right now. So,
well, and I think some people started it, but doesn't mean we have to finish it.
That's true.
And it goes against, I think, I think during the Obama years, where it's like, when they go low, we go high.
Go high.
People are like, high.
Right. You're like, damn that. Like, I'm like, y'all flying to the sky. I think you're going a little too high right now.
Well, what we learned that oftentimes, it wasn't benefiting us, right? The whole point of is staying high is that you maintain your dignity. You don't have to be in the trenches with these folks, right?
Right.
But in the end, we'll win.
Right.
And
Yes.
we're like, wait a minute, we just lost this election?
Right. We were like that
Hold
going high
up.
didn't really benefit us. Right. Right. I'm
These,
like, I'm gonna go high, but don't get it twisted.
I'll smack you in your
Talk
mouth.
shit on my way up. You
Don't think
know,
because I went to
don't
Prairie View, I'm going to smack you in your mouth.
right. like you're like Dr. Prince got gloves,
Put them
got
paws on you.
gloves, right? You're like,
I love to remind people, I said, look, you know I'm from Fifth Ward, right? And they're like,
you're like,
what's the phrase?
don't let these glasses fool you. You know,
What
don't
they
let these
say?
glasses articulation fool you. I could get down if I need to. It's been a minute, but I
What's
could
that
get down.
phrase? Don't mistake my kindness as a weakness.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Well,
Oh my.
Dr. James, it's always good to see you, my friend. We're gonna start with Oprah next time, but I had fun with you, man. It's good
Man, it's
talking with
always a
you.
good time. I got some laughs and jokes. I don't know that we solved any problems in the world, but you know, we had some food for thought for today. That's for sure.
Well, here we are, Riffing While Black. If you haven't already, comment, like, do what you gotta do. Find us on all those things. All right, take care, man.
Peace.